Good evening, YouTube. Today is March 21st, 2018. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up or how to upgrade your Ledger Nano S to use the latest firmware. Few things I want to get out the door before we get started. One is I already did my firmware upgrade and I messed up the first recording of the video, so there's no way that I'm really going to be able to undo that and then go through the whole thing in the recording. So I'm going to do my best to kind of pretend like I'm actually doing it and walk you through how to do it yourself. Second thing is I'm not a financial professional. I'm not a professional anything in the world of crypto. So anything in this video, use your own critical thinking, use your own thought process, and do your own research. I'm here to provide some guidelines to help you just up your security for your hardware wallet, but that's about it. The other thing is you will need a Ledger Nano S hardware wallet, and you will need Google Chrome, and you will need the Google Chrome Ledger Manager extension to do this. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So a few days ago, I got an email from Ledger, and it basically was announcing that they found a few issues, few security vulnerabilities, and they got the community's help to identify the problems and resolve them. And then they released their firmware upgrade 1.4.1. There were a few links in that email. The ones I found to be the most useful was the first one was this kind of explanation on what exactly they found. It's a deep dive. I read it. If you are interested in understanding the technical nuances and intricacies of the fix, go for it. But in a nutshell, they removed a vulnerability that only a very, very, very sophisticated hacker could succeed with. And so as far as Ledger is concerned, they are not aware of anybody actually successfully exploiting the vulnerability. And so in a sense, they have proactively prevented that from happening ever. The second link I found useful was basically the instructions. Okay. And so the instructions, I am going to go ahead and walk you through the instructions. And so let's go ahead and just starting from the top, firmware, they spelled firmware wrong, I guess, but you know what they mean. Firmware 1.4 update step-by-step instructions. And it just says to follow these instructions very carefully. So very carefully meaning if you don't follow them correctly, you risk crashing your hardware wallet. You risk kind of basically breaking it. So you need to have your recovery key handy if that happens. That way, if you break your Nano Ledger wallet in the process of doing this, you have your recovery key to recover your crypto assets or crypto funds, as opposed to if you crash your hardware wallet and you don't have your recovery key, then you stand the chance of losing all your funds. So let's go ahead and start with step one. Step one, it says launch the Ledger Manager on your PC / Mac and connect your Ledger Nano to your computer. So the Ledger Manager, you find it here by just typing in Ledger Manager. Oops, my typing is terrible, but Ledger Manager. It's a Google extension. I already have it open. And it says that I'm going to see the screen that tells me to connect my Ledger wallet. And it gives you kind of the step if your device is new. So this is not a video for people with new devices. This is for people who already have configured their device, so not a new device. So we're going to go here. It says if your device is already configured, plug it into the device. Plug in the device normally and enter your PIN code. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm plugging it in right now off the screen. You're not going to see. It's taking me a second because I struggle with the whole USB thing sometimes. So I plugged in my Nano Ledger. Once again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I already installed this firmware, so I'm not going to follow these instructions. I'm not going to show you these instructions like me doing them to a T. But you'll see that my Ledger, I don't know if it's going to get too blurry, but anyways, it's asking for the PIN, just like it's saying on the in my Chrome browser on the web page. So I'm going to put in my PIN. which I'm doing right now, off screen. And I put in my PIN, and it says let the ledger manager synchronize your wallet and wait for the dashboard to appear on your Nano OS. So I'm going to go to ledger manager, and I can see that I've already synced my wallet. This is my dashboard that they're talking about. So going back to the instructions, it says click on the firmware menu on the ledger manager application. So I'll go ahead and do that. It says you already have the latest firmware installed. So once again, I mentioned that I already did the upgrade, so this is what it's going to tell me because I'm good. I'm good to go. But if you don't have it installed, you're going to have these options show up in place of the message I just showed you on my dashboard. And it's click on the green arrow on the firmware version 1.4.1 line. So that's what I clicked on actually before when I was doing my upgrade. And then after that, it took me to the next page, and it was to install that firmware. And when I did that, my Nano Ledger Manager, it says, it asked me if I want to allow my Ledger Manager, the Google Chrome app extension, to access my hardware wallet. And I clicked this checkbox, so this button here. And then it started installing the firmware. And then the instructions say, you may get the following error: unable to install OS Updater. So I got that error, and the instruction said, if you get this error message, please uninstall all your applications from your Nano S. And it says restart the update and then try the procedure again. And then they say that, removing the app will not wipe your funds out. Of course, I was still paranoid, so I held my recovery key very tightly just in case. But basically, when I did that, I had to go back to applications. And so I had like the Bitcoin app, I had the Ethereum app, the Litecoin app, and all that on my hardware wallet. I had to go to each one. I'd have to hit delete. I hit delete on this one. I hit delete on this one and a few others. And I deleted them until my Ledger Manager had no crypto apps available. So, for example, I had the Ethereum app available within my hardware wallet. After I deleted it from here, it immediately was no longer visible or available in the actual device, my Nano Ledger device. So I had to delete all those first. Okay. And then after I did that, I went ahead and, like it says, restarted the update procedure. So to do that, I had to go to firmwares, and I had an option here to install 1.4.1, which I opted for. And that brought me to step 4. And I was asked if I wanted to update the firmware. I said checkbox yes. And then it asked me to validate the version 1.4.1. And I said checkbox yes. And then it says check the update identifier on your Ledger Nano OS. It must match the update identifier displayed at the bottom of your Ledger Manager screen. So what happens is, this is what shows up at your Ledger Manager when you're starting the process of updating, and this is what shows up on your in the Ledger Manager app. So this app, the screen here, that's actually what was showing up here for me. So this app here looked exactly like this when it was asking me to verify the identifier, and I verified that. And I did that by clicking on the right button on my Nano S, and then it asked me for my PIN code again. I punched in that PIN code again, and when I did that, it started updating, installing the OS updater, and I punched in my PIN code again, and it said, so what happened is, going back to that step, what happened is I waited for this to happen. I punched in my PIN code, and then I went on to the next step. Step 5. And then it displayed to me that my MCU firmware was outdated. I don't know what MCU is. You can read about it online, but it was outdated. And this is what my Ledger Manager looked like. So once again, this guy here looked like this guy here. And what I ended up doing is I had to unplug my device wallet. So I unplugged this like this. And then I replugged it back in while holding the left button down, okay? Left button meaning it's the button closest to the port on your device. And when I did that, the bootloader showed up like this. And so when that happened, I had the option to restore my MCU. And so I allowed that restore process to happen. I'm running out of battery. Okay, I gotta hurry up. And then after that, well, during the MCU update, my Nano Ledger S started cycling through the update. So it showed that it was updating, then it showed it was processing. And while my device was saying that, the Ledger Manager here was saying that it was installing the firmware. Okay. And I let it sit for about 3 minutes, and eventually it finished processing. Now, some people are running into an issue where the update just like stops responding, and Nano Ledger or Ledger has a set of steps to take to troubleshoot if you end up in that issue. So don't just stop the process midway through, but if it seems like the process seems to have crashed, I recommend looking into these steps that Ledger has provided, but mine didn't do that. And when the process was done, it asked for my PIN code again, and I typed it in. And basically, I typed it in to access my ledger. And step 6, I won't go into too much detail, but it basically has you double check on the firmware version that you have, and it asks you to confirm that the firmware version is 1.4.1, which was the case for me, which tells me I've updated to the right firmware. And then it also had me check what my MCU version was. So in the screenshot, it says 1.4, but it's actually supposed to be reading 1.5 with this upgrade. I checked my MCU version using this step here, and I was able to verify that I had the right MCU version. And after that, that was the point where I finished the update. And then after that, I had to reinstall all of my apps. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all that. So that's basically how you do the firmware upgrade. My general tendency is I get pretty lazy about security. I get pretty lazy about managing. I shouldn't say this in public, but I have gotten lazy about managing my crypto assets, but I've gotten a lot better about it. And if you're going to spend money on a hardware wallet for its security, you're not really getting all your money's worth unless you're keeping your firmware up to date. So that should be a good enough reason to make the upgrade. Anyways, if you have any questions or concerns or anything, go ahead and use the comment section. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe to keep an eye out for more videos like this one. Thanks, and have a good night. Bye.